These are fantasy football players that you need to trade for and fantasy football players that you need to trade away before the start of the fantasy playoffs. And we will be focusing on weeks 15 through 18. I'm going to be mentioning these guys' schedules a lot during this video because, again, this video is purely based on the fantasy football playoffs. So we'll be focusing on weeks 15 through 18 as most leagues have their playoffs anywhere in between those times. Before we get into the video, if you want access to all my picks, player props, fantasy football advice, all that good stuff, all you gotta do is just click the link in my bio and you can get access. Alrighty, first and foremost, we will start with the players that you need to trade away. So first player I got up is DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has one of the toughest playoff matchups in the NFL this year. As far as for fantasy. So as far as fantasy, who he plays is Cleveland, Green Bay, San Francisco, and Green Bay again. Cleveland is ranked second as far as on fantasy points for running backs, and Green Bay ranks sixth. San Francisco ranks 17th, but that's a game where they're going to have to be passing the ball. They're going to have to try to keep it moving. And yeah, it's just a ton of bad matchups for DeAndre Swift. I really like DeAndre Swift as far as a player. I think he's a really underrated running back, but I think when you look at his matchups for the fantasy football playoffs, they're brutal. Alrighty, next player I got up is Ladd McConkey. This is a guy, he's kind of been up and down. He's been, and that's another reason I kind of wanted to say trade this guy away if you can, get rid of this guy or sit him, whatever you gotta do. He obviously has been pretty up and down, pretty inconsistent the whole year. And in the fantasy playoffs, he has three very, very tough matchups. He goes against Kansas City, who's ranked 5th against wide receivers in fantasy points. He goes against Houston, who is ranked 2nd, and Denver, who is ranked 3rd. So again, he also has terrible matchups. And like I said, he's been very inconsistent, but he's still I think he's ranked 12th as far as in PPR format leagues. So I think you could still trade him away, get something good for him. And yeah, I would definitely trade him away if you can. Alrighty, next player I got up is Travis Kelce. Another guy has terrible matchups, has been kind of on this climb. He's played a lot better, at least in the last few weeks. He's scored a decent amount of points. But in the fantasy playoffs, and again, this is why I said trade him away while he's at this high point now. He goes against the Chargers, who are ranked 6th. He goes against Tennessee, who is ranked 10th. He goes against Denver, who is ranked 18th, which is not great, but he just played Denver. He didn't have that great of a game. And he goes against Las Vegas, who is ranked 5th. A lot of these games, I really don't see them passing the ball a ton. Of course, there's, the Chargers, Denver, they're going to have to pass it. But overall, those teams are really, really good against tight ends. And yeah, he just has some terrible matchups. I would definitely try to trade him away. Alrighty, next player up goes hand in hand with Travis Kelce. Has got to be Patrick Mahomes, which I know seems kind of crazy at this point. Of course, Patrick Mahomes has been one of the best fantasy quarterbacks this year, which I think has been actually a little bit of a surprise for some people. But he has been a very, very good fantasy football quarterback. But of course, he goes against a lot of good defenses in the fantasy playoffs. Again, Denver, he goes against the Chargers, Las Vegas, which Las Vegas is not a tough matchup. It's more he's not going to be passing a lot. Either way, again, like I said, if he's not going against a tough team, he's going against a very easy opponent that they're really not going to be passing the ball against. And yeah, I think you could definitely trade Mahomes for a lot of stuff. I mean, I think he holds a lot of value right now. Alrighty, next player up is got to be Derrick Henry. Of course, Derrick Henry, started off slow to the year and then has kind of gotten going again. Or he got going at the beginning of the year, but then, of course, Lamar got hurt. He slowed down, and now he's kind of gotten going again. And I think a lot of people are definitely hopping back on the Derrick Henry train, which I think is rightfully so. But nonetheless, he has some very, very tough playoff matchups. So he starts off pretty easy against my Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, that'll be an easy matchup. That's in week 15. But then pretty much after that, he has 3 straight top 10 matchups, which is obviously not good at all for him. And these are also pretty good teams he's playing. They're going against Pittsburgh, New England, and Cleveland. And these are teams I don't see him really getting going against. Cleveland, he just had a good game. partially because they were playing against Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders, who, pretty much gave him no fight. Of course, Gabriel got hurt, but that's a whole nother story. But point being is he has some very, very tough matchups in the playoffs. I would definitely trade him away. Next player I got up is Chris Olave. He's a guy that has been pretty surprising and definitely under the radar. I literally never hear this guy's name, but he is actually ranked 9th right now in fantasy football PPR rankings. So he is a top 10 receiver, but in the fantasy playoffs, he has 3 top 10 wide receiver matchups. That includes Atlanta, Carolina, and the Jets. Very, very tough teams to pass the ball against. Also teams that you really won't need to pass the ball against. And they'll be able to implement the run game. And overall, it's just not a good formula for Chris Olave. Brock Bowers, this is probably one of my favorite trade away players. Mostly just because I think his name carries a lot of weight. In the last few weeks, he's been pretty good. He had obviously that massive week, then he had that kind of down week, and then he had another good week. Right now, though, he's getting a lot of hype just because of his name, of course, before the season, and kind of what he's done the last few weeks. But in reality, he really hasn't been that special. He really hasn't. And in the fantasy playoffs, he also has very tough matchups. I'm sure you guys are seeing a common theme here with these guys. He goes against Houston, who is ranked 4th against tight ends. He goes against the Giants, who are ranked 13th. He goes against Philadelphia, who's ranked 3rd. And he goes against Kansas City, who's ranked 7th. So, again, very, very tough matchups. It's got to be hard for him to get going against these teams. Trade him away. Alrighty, now we are going on to the players that you need to trade for. Of course, more of an exciting segment. First player I got up is Justin Jefferson. And again, as far as for these players I'm about to name, this is a great opportunity. Trade for these guys. If you have any of those guys I just mentioned in the trade away section, try to trade those guys for these guys. First player up is Justin Jefferson. Another guy that's on my fantasy football team has been honestly pretty underwhelming. And mostly, I would definitely credit that to, J.J. McCarthy and how he's played. But nonetheless, McCarthy, he'll get better. He'll continue to improve. Or if he doesn't, they'll probably put in Carson Wentz, which honestly could be better. But when you look at Justin Jefferson's matchups for the fantasy playoffs, he goes against Dallas, who is ranked 31st against receivers, the Giants, who are ranked 26th, Detroit, who's ranked 24th, and Green Bay, who's ranked 16th. So very, very easy matchups for Justin Jefferson. All of those games, I expect them to be passing it quite a bit. And overall, I think it's just a great opportunity to get Justin Jefferson. Alrighty, next player I got up is a Cincinnati Bengal. Not a shock. A Cincinnati Bengal had to make, my video. I mean, they had to. And that is Chase Brown. His matchups are looking pretty good. Again, he goes against Baltimore, who's ranked 29th against the run. Miami, who's ranked 27th. Arizona, 14th. Cleveland, 2nd. So overall has very, very good matchups throughout the entire fantasy football playoffs. I also really like how he's kind of steadily gotten going. Of course, ever since Joe Flacco got in there. Of course, Joe Burrow return is looming. I got some thoughts about that, but that's another discussion. But nonetheless, I think he has some very good matchups, and like I said, I've really liked to see how he's kind of gotten going, how the Bengals have started to lean on him a lot more. Alrighty, next player I got up is Dak Prescott. He's got to be one of the top players on this list. He's had a few slow games in a row, and that's why I think right now is probably the perfect time to trade for him. He goes against Minnesota, who's ranked 16th. That should be kind of a shootout type of game. He goes against Washington, who is ranked 30th, and the Giants, who are ranked 29th. So again, very, very good matchups for Dak Prescott. And clearly, if you watched the Cowboys, their whole offense is the pass. So I think he's got to tear it up in the fantasy playoffs. Saquon Barkley has got to be my next pick. Again, another guy that's been kind of slow. He's been disappointing this season, to say the least. But of course, he's still a really, really good running back. And as of late, we have seen Philadelphia start to give him more carries, start to give him those opportunities again, which is exactly what you want to see going into the fantasy playoffs. The issue is he really just hasn't found the end zone, which has been, pretty surprising. Whereas last year, he found the end zone every single game. But I would definitely expect that to flip around here very, very soon. Anyways, though, as far as his matchups, he goes against Las Vegas, who is ranked 21st. He goes against Washington, who is ranked 15th. He goes against Buffalo, who is ranked 25th. And he goes against Washington again, who is ranked 15th, of course. So has some very good matchups as well. And like I said, I think the biggest thing with him is kind of how disappointing he's been and how I think he could definitely get going. And so, yeah, I would definitely try to pick up Saquon. Alrighty, next player I got up is Lamar Jackson. Mostly just because of his matchups. He really, I wouldn't say he has the lowest value, right now to trade for him. But his matchups during the playoffs, I mean, yeah, you can't deny they are very, very good matchups. He goes against Cincinnati, who is ranked 31st. He goes against New England, who is ranked 11th. That game should be, I can definitely see a lot of scoring in that game. So that's kind of why I think that could be a good opportunity. And he goes against Pittsburgh, who is ranked 28th against the pass so far this year. So very, very easy matchups. These are all games that I would expect either shootouts or very even games where, the Ravens aren't going to be able to just run the ball or, whatever. So I would expect Lamar Jackson to have some very, very big games in the playoffs. I would definitely trade for him. And then next up, I got Jalen Hurts, again, similar to Lamar. Whereas, of course, Jalen, of course, has not gotten hurt all year, but he has been a little disappointing at times. But when you look at his matchup, he goes against Las Vegas, Washington, Buffalo, Washington. Again, same as, of course, Saquon. All of those teams are almost in the bottom 10 against fantasy football quarterbacks. Except for Las Vegas, they're ranked 19th, and Buffalo, who's ranked 2nd. Buffalo, of course, though, I would expect that to be a close game where I would expect a lot of scoring in that game. And, overall, I would definitely try to get Jalen Hurts if you can. And then the final player I got up on my list has got to be Bucky Irving. He's probably the biggest sleeper on this list. He could also be the biggest gamble, I will say, but I think he's got to come back and be fantastic. And in the fantasy playoffs, he plays against Atlanta, who's ranked 24th. As far as fantasy running backs goes, he goes against Carolina, who's 18th, Miami, who is 27th, and Carolina again, who's 18th. All very, very easy matchups against the run, as well as I would expect them to honestly not have a super tough time getting in the lead against these teams. These are not super tough teams they're playing, so I would expect them to lean even more on that run game. And like I said, these teams are also very easy matchups. So yeah, I think Bucky Irving could definitely be the biggest player and the best player that you need to trade for. Alrighty, y'all, that is going to cap it off for the video. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And again, let me know if you guys got any other players that you think should either be traded for or traded away. And yeah, without further ado, I will see you guys next one. Peace out.